Welcome back to the StockTA podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Steuer. Today, we're focusing on a gold development story in Mexico that is executing one of the largest exploration and expansion campaigns in the entire junior sector this year. We're talking about Sonoro Gold, ticker SGO on the TSX Venture and SMOFF over the counter. Please note this interview is being disseminated on behalf of Sonoro Gold. Sonoro has quietly consolidated a massive footprint in the Sonoro state right next to tier 1 operators like Agnico Eagle. They just dropped a newly updated PEA displaying seller project economics literally days ago, and they upsized an oversubscribed private placement to massive Canadian 15 million to fully fund an aggressive 50,000 meter drilling campaign. Joining me to walk us through the path to production is Sonoro's president and CEO, Ken MacLeod. Ken, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Kevin. It's always a pleasure to chat with you.
So Ken's going to share his slide deck, and we're going to go through some of the upcoming catalysts for my listeners who don't know much about Sonoro.
So today we're going to present with you a 15-minute slideshow on Sonoro Gold and the main project in Mexico, the Cerro Caliche project, and go straight into it. But first of all, I want to point out that we are going to be talking about events that will occur in the future. And so I'd like to caution you that take a look at the forward-looking statements here and make sure you're comfortable with me talking about the future events. The company was created in the late 2008 approximately, or 2009, and the two founders were two men on the screen here on the right-hand side. Jorge Diaz, he's our vice chairman and VP operations, and also the largest single shareholder in Sonoro. He is a mining engineer, 50 years experience in designing, constructing, and operating mines in northern Mexico, including having his own private mine as well. That's been operating for the past 6 years. So he's a really, really good hands-on mining engineer and insider of the company. He's been one of our greatest supporters over the past 5 years as well. His partner at the time was Melvin Herdrick. Mel was a geologist with about 45 years experience now. And he's been actually working on the discovery of as many as 6 million ounces of gold over his career. Some of the notables would be the La Colorada mine in Sonora State, the San Antonio deposit in Baja California. Between those two, that's about 3.5 million ounces. When you add the Chipriona property that they had in the company when we first acquired, when Sonora first went public in 2011, that's about another 1.5 million ounces of gold equivalent. And so all in all, Mel has discovered as much as 6 million ounces of gold during his career. The other two members that I want to point out, three members actually, would be John Darch, our chairman. He's been operating gold mines and oil companies and geothermal energy companies over the past 50 years as well, all over the world, from the Philippines, Africa, and Europe, and even Greenland for that matter. And of course, now into North America. And so have I been for the past 45 years working on the development of mining projects, oil and gas projects, and geothermal energy over the past 45 years. So these my experiences around the world as well, in the Philippines and Myanmar and Democratic Republic of Congo, Mexico, Chile, and of course the United States. And so going on to our final member on the team here, Oscar Gonzalez, expert geologist operating for the past 25 years in our district. And so all the projects that are surrounding us at Cerro Caliche, he's been working on them extensively over the past 25 years. And so he knows the district very well. And that enabled us to really expand our sphere of operations in the area to effectively go from 1,340 hectares to over 9,000 hectares already, and possibly more to come. So it's based upon his knowledge of the district that we are able to secure these additional projects. Share structure. We're in the process right now closing another financing for $15 million Canadian, a total of 60 million shares at 25 cents a share. And so the numbers you see today are going to be redundant as of tomorrow. But we have currently issued as of the date of this presentation, 366 million shares, of which the insiders own almost 30%. So it's a very well structured as far as the insiders are concerned. We have a major vested interest in the securities of the company, and so the concerns of our shareholders are the concerns of the insiders of the company as well. And of all the warrants that are outstanding and will be exercised over the next 12 to 18 months, the insiders control about 20% of those. Location-wise, we are in Sonora State, which is northwestern Mexico. And if you look at the small map, we are bounding, the northern boundary is Arizona to the north. And of course, across to the west, you have the Sea of Cortez and the Baja Peninsula. And if you look at the big map, location-wise, we are about a 3-hour drive south of Tucson, Arizona, to the Gold Star, which is our major flagship project, the Cerro Caliche project. And the Blue Star is our San Marcial project, which is about 30 kilometers to the southwest of Cerro Caliche. The major town in the area is Magdalena de Quino, and it's very much of a mining town. They're probably within 100 kilometers, there's probably over 100 mines that Magdalena de Quino has been instrumental at some point in benefiting. And to the south, of course, 3-hour drive to the south is the capital, Hermosillo. So the GDP of Sonora State is heavily reliant on the mining industry, 25% of GDP directly related to mining, and you can add another 10, 15% of indirect benefits from the mining industry. So location-wise, again, Magdalena de Quino, which is a town that's shown on the top left-hand corner. It's a 45-minute drive to our Cerro Caliche project. But nearby town of Cucurpe, population of 842, is one in focus for developing relationships with, because Cucurpe, we are employing quite a few people from Cucurpe, and of course from Magdalena as well. But Cucurpe seems to be the town that we've sort of taken under our wing and work closely with to develop infrastructure, such as purification of water, for example. And back in 2022, our environmental engineers had done a study in Cucurpe, and they had asked the question to the population. I think there were 250 members of the town, all adults, male and female. They were asked the question, do you support a new mining project coming close to your town? And the answer was wholeheartedly 99% in favor. Yes, we do support. So we've got a good mandate there from the local population. And we are 16 kilometers away from the town of Cucurpe. And if you look at the region surrounding Cerro Caliche, there is really hardly any habitation there. Small ranches that are situated in the district. And of course, we're situated on 2 major ranches at this point in time. So we have a very, very close relationship with the ranchers. There are no ejidos in the area that we have to contend with. There are no areas I would classify as being environmentally sensitive to the point where we could not operate. Water supply is available to the west in the arroyo to the west, and we will be drilling into that to secure our water supply, and the piping at about 8 kilometers to the project site. We are to the north. We're bounding on the Santa Gertrudis project of Agni Coeagle. And to the southeast is the Mercedes mine. And so the area in between is effectively controlled by us. Just to the west of us as well, there is a mine called the Cerro Prieto mine that's been operating for the past 9 years. So here's a snapshot of the way that the project evolved over the past 8 years. So back in 2018, we acquired this area called the Cerro Caliche concessions, and it's 1,350 hectares in total at that time. So we started drilling in 2018 in October, and then we drilled all the way until 2022, 23, and we developed 55,000 meters of drilling, which enabled us then in recent times, i.e. just a few months ago, we published an updated PEA, which showed a grand total of just under 800,000 mineable ounces and just under 500,000 ounces of produced ounces based upon a recovery rate of 72% for gold. So we were quite happy with that. We published the results of the PEA, And we started looking at, okay, there's potential in the district. So we should be looking further afield in this region here to see how we can extend and how we can enhance the value of the project even further, with the PEA being very, very robust as it was. So the first thing we needed to do was secure the surface rights. In Mexico, you have two elements. One is you get the mineral rights for the exploration and for you developing a resource through your drilling program. And when you go into production, you need to obtain the surface rights. And these are typically held by the landowners in the area. In this instance, it was the ranchers that were controlling the surface rights in the area. So we went to our rancher and said, we need the surface rights. And then he went ahead and said, we'll love it. We'll definitely make a deal with you. And here we go. So we secured the entire Cerro Prieto Ranch, 5,000 hectares. Surface rights are now granted to us for the next 25 years. So that provides us with security of tenure in the region. And so we don't have to worry about going back to try to secure some additional areas for operating on the surface. The next door neighbor, the Cerro Prieto mine, has a lease on their part of the concession there until August the 31st of 2028. At that point, if they want to continue mining, which I assume they will, they will become tenants on our ranch at that point. So, which is perfectly fine for us. This year, there was a major renaissance in the way that the company has been valued and viewed in the public marketplace. We were able to start generating financings. And in fact, I believe that we've secured something like $27 million in financings. Yeah, $27.7 million in financings over the past 3 months. That enabled us then to expand to the north, as you can see here in the blue, and to the south as well. So the area shown in yellow is the original Cerro Caliche concession, 1,350 hectares. The areas you see in red are vein structures that have been exposed at surface and that we have assayed and are able to quantify it as mineralized zones. Now, to the north here, we know the mineralization continues in a northwesterly direction because that's the way that the vein structures are trending in this particular area. So we were very fortunate to secure this area to the north and to the south as well, which enabled us then to increase the size of the concession to almost 4,000 hectares. Now, we are quite thrilled to work in this area to the north because we know that originally we had operators that worked here 20 years ago, 15 years ago, that had demonstrated a fair amount of drilling and showed higher grade mineralization. And we will be working on taking that data and using it as a guide for us to go in there and do a 43-101 compliant drilling going into over the coming few months. So fast forward to the past 3 months, and we were very, very fortunate to have a good relationship with the next door neighbor to the east of us, who owned a really substantial mineralized concession and has owned it for multiple years, I would say for decades and decades. And there's been a lot of work done on this particular concession over the past 35 years. And we came to the point where it became obvious that this is a concession we ought to have because the mineralization is known to be present on that concession as well. So if you look at the original area in yellow, which was the Cerro Caliche area we acquired in 2018, and the area to the north we acquired a few months ago. Now we're looking at the area shown in red to the east of us and blue. And we've now extended the size of the concession from 4,000 hectares to plus another 5,000 hectares, which gives us a total of 9,000 hectares. Now, that's a substantial amount of area by anybody's stretch of the imagination. But the interesting thing is, to the north, our boundary is with the Agnico Eagle Santa Gertrudis concession. And to the south and the east, we're bordering on the Mercedes mine. And so this area now to the east of us, once again, I mentioned, had 35 years of exploration expenditures done on it. by multiple parties. And so we're able now to acquire these the data from the rancher that owns the concessions, and we're putting that into our database. And we'll, over the next few months, we will then take the data and then determine the best course of action as far as drilling for us is concerned. But we are quite emphatic that there's going to be a significant amount of mineralization in this particular zone as well. So collectively, between the original Cerro Caliche and the new extension to the north and now to the east, 9,000 hectares should yield us a very substantial amount of additional mineralization. Now, the PEA that we produced back in the past few months really shows a good rate of return for the investors. A grand total of just under 800,000 mineable ounces. The capital cost to build the mine on the basis of a 10-year life of mine, throughput of 16,000 tons per day, yields approximately just under 50,000 ounces a year over that 10-year life of mine. But keep in mind that the most important thing is it's not static. We are drilling like crazy right now. We're conducting a 50,000 meter drilling program to extend the size of the resource. And that will have a dramatic effect in the future on the size of the mine going forward, because the intention is you either increase the size of the size of the throughput, or you increase the life of the mine, or both. And we will be looking very strongly at both scenarios to provide us with the best rate of return for the shareholders. Now, the cash cost per ounce as we stand today is $1,800, and the AISC is $1,900. And over time, we believe that even those costs will come down in a meaningful way. Now, the net present value before tax in US dollars is $360 million. That's discounted at 8%, which is a fairly substantive discount for projects of this nature here. And post-tax is $224 million US, with a 50% post-tax IRR. Now, that was based upon $3,500 gold, which was the base case that was used 2 months ago, 3 months ago, when the calculation was made for the resource estimation and the valuation. Back in 2 months ago, when it was originally announced, gold was over $5,000 an ounce. And well, it has backed off since then, so we won't dwell on that for the moment. So the mining project has been the subject of preliminary engineering now for 6 months. And here's the outlook that we're looking at. They've got an open pit area. And the reason we have there areas in between there is because when we were drilling here, we had limited amount of funds. And so there's a lot of areas within this open pit area that is classified as sterile ground, which has not been drilled. But we know that there's mineralization there because of evidence at surface. So guess what? We now have placed one drill there, and it's been operating now for the past 2 to 3 weeks in the area in between the Cabeza Blanca zone and the Buena Suerte zone. And we're hoping to infill that area and make it a continuing part of the open pit. So if you look at we'll continue to drill in this area for the foreseeable future. But in 2 to 3 weeks' time, we're going to put a second rig in the northern part of the concession, where we also know that the average grades of gold and silver are demonstrably higher than they were in the southern part of the concession. So we're looking forward to getting that second rig onto the site ASAP. So you drill and blast in the open pit area. You take the ore to the primary crusher, goes from there by conveyor belt to the intermediate and tertiary crush, and from there it goes on to the leach pad. You sprinkle on your sodium cyanide onto the crushed rock, and you collect the gold in solution underneath the leach pad, goes to the ADR plant, the adsorption desorption plant, goes through that process, and you end up with a doré bar shipped off for final refining. That's a summary on it. We're not building any major structures. So as you can see here, it's very, very reliant on the price of gold for increasing the valuation as we go along. That's the 55,000 meters of drilling that we accomplished to date. And once again, it emphasizes that the areas in and around the pit shells that will benefit from infill drilling to increase the size of the resource over the coming months. Good grades in some of these structures there, 27.5 meters of 5.5 grams, starting at near or very near surface, including a 46-gram intercept of 50 meters. So we're really, really thrilled to see extensive mineralization throughout these various zones and high-grade mineralization as well. Area to the north, if you go into section BB here, is a continuation of AA. There's AA, and then BB shows you the vein structures that may actually coalesce at depth. And we're in the process right now of drilling in the lower zones here to see how far down the mineralization goes and whether they do coalesce at depth, and whether we're going to continue to receive the higher grade vein structures as we go down deeper. Easier to mine, pretty well, that's over a 2.5 kilometer width of structures, parallel structures trending northwest with stockwork and disseminated gold in between. Like I said, very easy to mine, potential for depth as well in many, many areas. Here's a drilling plan that we're currently following. The area in green to the south there is where the current drilling is taking place to infill the areas that are not classified as pit shell material at this point. And of course, starting in the north, we'll put the second rig into this area, the pink area showing that is underlain with rhyolite, and we're starting to demonstrate higher grades for both gold and silver in this area here. So that's 50,000 meters of drilling that's being proposed, as you can see on this map here. Evidence of visible gold in some of the vein structures. It's always nice to see. And if we were to get the environmental permit approval today to build the mine, we would expect to have it actually completed and the first doré bar delivered within 13 months. So it's a very, very tried and trusted construction period. And so we don't see any issues with having it taking any longer than 13 months. In fact, our team has built mines in much, much less time than that. The second project we'll be looking at later on this year, the San Marcial project. And so we'll hope to bring additional information to you in the next few months on that. So we have a team that is second to none in Mexico with been operating there for the past 40, 50 years. The project is one of the best projects now in northern Mexico. And it's with the expansion now, it's getting even better all the time. The company, 30%, almost 30% owned by the insiders. And the intention is to keep on owning that large percentage of the company going forward. And we have the major vested interest to make it successful. We're following the business plan to go into production with building the mine, while at the same time, we're going to be continuing with the initial 50,000 meter drilling program and successive drilling programs beyond that. And financing, we've been very successful in securing financing over the past few months. Thank you very much for listening.
Well, thank you for giving that overview. I'm going to share my screen really quick so we can show your stock ticker to my users. So on the OTC, for my American users, it's SMOFF. It is sold off a little bit alongside with gold pulling back kind of the Q1, Q2 this year. Do you have any general comments on your share price and why you think you're a little undervalued here?
Well, I think it's been a case of some investors are a little wary. Of course, we've been able to secure a lot of money, a lot of financings over the past 3 to 4 months. And the market has to absorb that extra financing. All of the most financing until April of this year, I believe it was till April, are free trading now. Actually, it was to February free trading. So we had to absorb that. But everything was being absorbed very, very well until the recent downturn in the price of gold. And it's stabilizing now, but which is fine. And I do believe that in the long term that the price of gold will not only stabilize but also start to move up in an upward direction, because I think when you look at the elements that dictated the gold price over the past couple of years, these elements are still in place, and I think the upward pressure it will outweigh the negatives that are happening on a very, very recent basis.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. Just to kind of wrap this up, what do you think is the biggest fundamental driver of the company between now and year end?
Or the fact that we're vigorously pursuing the environmental impact statement approval to build the mine, that's always been the number one element for us to follow through on. But at the same time, it's enhanced by the drilling program. And I honestly believe that the 50,000-meter drilling program is going to yield a significant increase in the mineralization, in the size of the mineralization, maybe even the grade of the mineralization. So when you take those two catalysts into account, we've got a double whammy to provide the shareholders with the benefits of both happening simultaneously.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much for that update. For any of my listeners on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button so you don't miss our next CEO deep dive. Ken, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Kevin. Pleasure talking to you.